afternoon, good evening, in the past, present, or future, wherever and whenever you are. Welcome to another edition of the Living World of Darkness Changeling 20th venue. We find ourselves now in the freehold, the baronial freehold of Manhattan. And what a change has happened since the last time we've gotten a real good look at the baronial freehold since the linking of the Balefires. It almost seems like the estate itself has like stretched and expanded and even risen above higher than the normal before. It seems to just be this. It almost seems like it's become almost a more decadent palace, for lack of a better term, and yet there seems to be room and space plenty enough for anyone who seems to be coming their way, which is a good thing because there's more activity here than there has been in a long time. Knights using two knights and their squires forming up with members of the old guard and the new members of the militia of both Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the new recruits. It is a bustling place of activity, more activity than there has been since Iona had ruled this place. But now we find ourselves moving inwards as one of these knights, not the Brooklyn Knights, but a knight of Manhattan proper, finds himself on his way to meet up with the Baroness herself. Where are we meeting?
They would be meeting in one of the actual meeting rooms of the games.
And with that, Charles enters and... No, and I'm assuming she's there before him. He announces himself, Sir Cararis, keeper of the Diamond Word, up Daron, at your service, my lady.
Alice is, for once in her life, dressed as a baroness. A long, sweeping, puffy gown, fitting of her demeanor and her nature, but definitely looking on a solid footing for once. Confident, poised, makeup done. She motions for him to sit. Sir Cararis, it is a pleasure. I am glad you were able to make this meeting.
As am I, as he says as he takes the seat graciously before there.
Once he is seated, she will sit as well and smiles. So, I heard you're very busy and that you've been hard at work lately.
Only lately. I'm afraid. I'm assuming this has been a recent matter. But it just a smile as though it's a polite joke saying it's like I've been working really hard for a while.
The governor of Brooklyn has assured me that you're working diligently to assist them if they so choose to enter into the alliance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the governor. So you've already spoken with Sam, then.
I thought that Amber was in that position.
Amber is not governor. She's councilwoman.
Oh. She seems to be throwing a lot of weight around for a councilwoman.
Well, if the recent events of their voting is to be concerned, I'm sure we're going to have another individual on the council who will be throwing their weight around quite as well. He gives us like that bright diamond fang smile that just doesn't seem too nice.
An uncharacteristically dark look comes over her eyes. I am perhaps a little concerned about that individual, especially since it feels like certain hypocrisies have been put forward, considering that my elevation to the seat of Baroness was opposed on grounds of commoners should never accept a title or position. Also, this individual happened to go on a long rant at one point in time about how joining the Staten Island democracy or council was an affront to the very ideals of revolution. I would never be so rude as to suggest that I am cross with this individual, but I'll leave that where it is.
And I will not pursue that matter any further, as I don't wish to make this meeting one of something distressing. I'm sure there you have other matters that you have summoned me here for.
Yes. For one, I know that I don't have the authority to elevate any stations, but I want to commend you personally. Heartfelt and sincere. Thank you for all you've done for Manhattan.
Well, your blessing is greatly appreciated, my lady. Yeah, he bows at that. But I'm certain that it's not just for my commendation that you have summoned me here.
No. But it's important to get that out of the way and let it be known, because it factors into the strategic part of why I brought you here. She opens up a folder, sets it down. 2 more knights, 3 more squires, 15 more members to the House Guard, bringing us up to 30. Inspired by my husband's perhaps ill-advised speech and declaration, going forward, I have a personal policy of, if he is to be influenced, we should probably be a little more direct.
Yes, perhaps so, if that is your recommendation. He smiles at that.
As his wife, and as Baroness, I can emphatically say yes. Direct works way better, because otherwise he starts misinterpreting certain signs.
Well, in future then, when my advice is given, then I shall make sure that it is more direct to the point and perhaps a little less flowery than most.
Which brings me to the military side of this. That I do have authority over.
Mm-hmm.
Strategy, deployments. We're going to need to reorganize. With 30 members, we have the largest guard. Twice what anyone else can field. We have the fewest knights, however.
30 militia, more commoner guard. And then you have the and 2 knights, and you said 3 squires, yes?
3 new squires. 4 if we include yours.
So I'm assuming you're wishing to figure out how we're going to break this down, and possibly how we're going to afford the numbers.
Yes and yes. I have some ideas and some thoughts, but I value your opinion, discretion, and experience. So I wanted your input as well.
Well, I would like to hear my lady's opinions first, and I will provide my feedback.
To begin, I want to divide everything up into 3 different units. Smaller and more mobile than a 15-man, and reduces the confusion. The reason being is Manhattan is probably one of the most difficult baronies to guard, both mundanely and mystically. We need to be flexible. rapid response. The military has this thing called quick reaction forces. We should keep one unit of 10 as a quick reaction force and the other 2 as actual designated patrol areas. If something goes wrong, we can send a quick reaction force instantly to a zone and deal with the problem at hand if they need reinforcements, or if it's outside the usual patrols of the other 2. This keeps us not only flexible and capable, but also at a moment's notice we can reinforce to a size larger than anything else that could come our way. 3 knights, each one commanding 10, with one acting as a senior, specifically one who might receive such a role due to commendations of service and familiarity with the barony. However, we will need a stronger chain of command. So my thought is each one of the new knights keeps a squire, and then a second squire be placed under your care. With the eventual goal of you training up a new knight to take your position so that we can elevate you to captain of the guard. Your job will be to coordinate and command the other 3 knights, who will in turn, with their squires, be in charge of their 10-man units. As for the next part, strategy, I've given you the quick reaction force, but we also need to have training, something that wasn't being done before. Even the National Guard in the US has 2 training days a month. We should formalize this to make sure that everyone is brought up to a certain level of combat expertise and capability, whether it's their proclivities are mystical or more mundane. And I believe that's something that you are uniquely capable of doing, considering I heard something about firearms training with the police.
There's a very heavy-set narrowing of his eyes.
In Japan, we don't have a lot of firearms training, mostly hand-to-hand. Firearms are only authorized under very specific circumstances. So I'm not quite sure how it works in the US. I will be honest, I'm going a little bit by what I've seen on TV.
I myself am probably not the best person to put in charge of firearms training. And there's a very big gritting of his teeth at that before he manages to find some measure of composure before continuing on. But he's starting to flex his right hand a little bit, almost like it's not a habit he's done before. But it's been something, especially with the past month, that has been a thing that has been manifesting.
Sir Kararis, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
I apologize if I stepped on any sort of frayed line.
Oh no! Please don't mind me. It's and he realizes that in that moment he notices his hand, and he almost staring at it like it's moving on its own for you're watching something fascinating happening beyond your control. As he's watching the hand flutter before he puts his left on it and puts it under the table. I am not the militant expert. Sad to say, I can propose strategy, but when it comes to actual implementing actual forces of martial discipline, I'm sad to say that is the poorest side of my education. However, That doesn't mean I can't pull in some favors and make sure that the militia and the guards get a chance to go to a firing range and get some professional some degree of professional training.
Connections and the wisdom to know what you can and cannot do is a mark of a great leader.
Most of the rest of what you've proposed seems fair to me. It makes sense to keep a flexible force, and especially keeping two on patrol. Now, my main question then is the response force going to be the main guard of the freehold itself, or are there others who are suited to that?
So that's why I wanted 2 units on patrol. One of them would be covering areas near the freehold, so the freehold itself and the surrounding zones.
Mhm.
And then the other one would be roving much wider, a longer circuit through Manhattan proper. The quick reaction force, I would hope, would have members skilled in Wayfarer and then be able to respond appropriately to incidents in other places. They would stay mostly in the freehold until called upon, which means that they double as an immediate defense of the freehold should something get past the main patrol. Now, if they get called away and they're not here, that's why the main patrol for the freehold would have to fall back.
My other suggestion is to actually put your different cast members into a rotation. We don't want anyone stagnating on a certain place. That gets everyone to get a little lackadaisical.
I agree.
So my suggestion then would be a 1-month rotation at minimum.
Eventually. First, I want everyone to get familiar with Manhattan proper, so I would like to rotate them out on a bi-weekly until everyone's familiar with the area, the streets, the people, at which point in time we can go to a monthly rotation because that will be more cost effective. And that way we don't lose that familiarity with each area and we're not constantly having to learn. But a broad experience, I think, would be better for their initial training.
That seems fair. Now, on to the number of squires. Do we know who's already sworn to who at this point?
That we don't. That's part of the integration process I was hoping that you would head up.
I can look into that. Make sure that it is very clear to me that at least 2 of the knights would already have their squires. So it makes sense that 2. That just means there's one floating around about or already is sworn to someone or something that we have not yet addressed yet. Now, I appreciate your confidence in me in being able to handle 2 squires at once. I must say I'm rather flattered at that, but I do not feel that I have produced results with Anye as of yet. So I would have to ask politely to decline being added to when I have not yet proven the capabilities of the squire I currently have under my control.
Anye, how has she progressed so far, in your estimation, in both the political, the more martial, and then perhaps the social graces?
We're still very much in the beginning of getting to know every detail. I am going to be searching for a suitable mentor in the terms of her blade work. She has been integrating herself with members of equal or lesser standing in as far as skill, people within her age range. She has to break out of that. I have no doubt she is skilled at what she does, but if she's ever going to improve, she's going to have to learn from someone with more experience than her.
And you mentioned training others is not necessarily your forte. How would you feel about your own martial position?
I am very satisfied where it's at, my lady.
Word of what you were able to do at the Ranter attack has spread, and I saw firsthand what you were capable of doing mystically with preparation. Should we be ambushed by an assault, do you have a preference? Up close, or are you more like me and you prefer long range?
Personally, I prefer not to get into a physical conflict at all. And usually it doesn't come to that.
I'm not trying to pry. I just was trying to gauge what we are and are not capable of in case of more incidents.
Hmm. In the future, please trust that I will use the full might of my abilities on whatever comes our way. And if need be, I will throw myself in the path of the blade for the Baron and yourself. However, don't expect me to punch back.
So I've been trying to fill my own deficiencies. I am hoping that with a little bit more training, I should be able to do exactly what you just said and punch back as well as set things on fire. So if you prefer being able to call people out at a distance, I am confident you'll get that time, she says with a almost feral smile.
Well enough.
I do plan on, if anything, if we have to marshal a defense, I plan on leading from the front. That said, I don't foresee a need for any siege tactics in the near future or having to form any sort of defensive strategies, fortunately.
We may have to make sure that we're prepared for potential Nervosa in future.
That is what I'm afraid of, and why I wanted a flexible force.
What we need to make sure is that if there is going to be a potential Nervosa threat, we need to make sure that everyone, including the Commoner Guard, is aware of what to expect with a Nervosa and how to deal with it. Now, the good news is we've already opened up the doors to education. That's all well and good within our own barony. We need to make sure that our libraries are stocked with that, and that becomes mandatory reading, especially within the next within the near future.
The orders will be passed down. I'm hoping that we can have an organized meeting of out of character, forgive me, STs, of all the knights simultaneously with their squires. Because fighting nightmarish creatures is something of a specialty of mine. And I plan on sharing everything I know. Not to mention, I have the ability to burn away certain detrimental side effects of Nervosa.
Yes, I believe that was a very apt demonstration with what happened with the Baku yesterday.
You're too kind, Sir Kararis.
Well, It's nothing to do with kindness, my lady. Simply facts.
So, the rest of the strategies, though, and everything seems to be agreeable.
At least for now, this seems agreeable. This at least is a good starting point to get a more rounded and well organized structure going.
And you're okay with the militaristic elevation of yourself?
I would much prefer to remain more of as an advisor to yourself and the young lord. But if you feel that I'm more valuable in a military position, then who am I to argue?
I would like to get you back into the advisory role as well. Unfortunately, from what you were saying, Anya is not ready for a promotion of her own.
Then we should look at the three squires just in case. Maybe one of them has proven themselves to have potential before we should discount them from having any merit.
I'm not discounting them at all. I just believe that in the short term, we need to have a familiar face in the chain of command. We can always promote someone later and then transfer you laterally.
Very well. Until such a time comes around, I shall commit to the duties as a commander.
I appreciate it, Sir Kararis.
Now about funding.
And that's the other part. Because there's 3 lines of funding due to us being a more supernatural organization. The money part shouldn't be too hard. Sebastian and the barony have funds. I mean, we don't have the knights that we used to, so money isn't going to be as much of an issue.
He's kind of like there's almost like a side not at her but like a side eye moment to like someone or something that's not there, almost in like the direction of where the statue of Sir Carol was, thinking in a slight thought of his own head. It's like, yeah, we never had more than ever, maybe 2 nights at most at any given time. but he doesn't say that out loud. But he comes back to himself to hear the rest of what she has to say.
Not to mention I have funds of my own that I can put forward. I'm hoping to expand on those. What is the problem is going to be more of the day-to-day funding of all these individuals, and then the mystical.
Do continue.
Day-to-day funding. Everyone's going to need jobs on top of all this, flexible ones, if they don't have jobs already. I know that many have left Brooklyn, so that means they're going to probably have had to leave their jobs there too.
Maybe not all of them. Some of them probably still, depending on their careers. That's something we're going to have to research into.
Exactly. And then the mystical. I haven't been around to really look into this. Do you have any idea what type of dross we're pulling in from the freehold?
Unfortunately, that's not something I'm very much privy to either. I can only imagine that now, since we have the linked freeholds of all the baronies and the freehold of Pastrustra, I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sorry, along with the cauldron houses, glamour has increased to a rate between all these areas. Excuse me. Exponentially. I unfortunately don't know what we were drawing in prior. I don't know what we're drawing in now. That's something that we will have to talk to the Lord himself on, or whoever he has maintaining the accounts.
I'll speak to him personally.
Mm.
And that brings me to, I guess, the final point of all the financial parts. Leon, the Count.
Mm.
I don't want the Count thinking this is some sort of sudden uprising. I mean, the last time an army formed out of nowhere, a barony became a governorship.
Of course. The Count and myself have a good understanding, and I believe I mentioned it in the previous meeting. Well, I'm not quite sure if it was all too heard all too well amidst the conversation. That
Transparency.
mhm, transparency. I would suggest that it could be me. I could be the one to send it. I'm already in intense conversation. I'm already in communication with him myself. Although you being the one orchestrating these events, it would probably be better coming from the young Baroness herself with her plan of what this is supposed to be and what this is supposed to do.
It sounds like I'm going to have to set up an audience. I was afraid of that.
Hmm. Not necessarily an audience. You don't have to necessarily do that. I've found that writing him letters works just as well.
Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to meet him, and so I have a feeling it would be better if I tried to make a first impression before sending letters.
Ah, of course. It would make sense. If you would like, I could go ahead and orchestrate the meeting.
I would greatly appreciate that.
Then consider it done. I shall send him a message that you wish to speak, and the matter of which you wish to speak about, and I'll get back to you on when would be an appropriate time.
Is there any concerns that you have, Sir Kararis? Anything you'd like to bring forward regarding this plan and strategy before we adjourn?
I'm sure that depending on things, like I said, we should not fully act. We should at least start the training one way or another. We can't have them sitting around lackadaisically with nothing to do. We should make sure we're getting them jobs or situated within Manhattan, or making sure that their current occupations within Brooklyn are not becoming too much of a concern, especially if you're wanting to maintain a era of flexibility. My concern is my own form of employment, and especially if rumors are to be believed, I'm going to be being transferred back to the 32nd Precinct in Manhattan. Unfortunately, my employment requires me to be on hand at a moment's notice. It's part of the perks and drawbacks of working with the police force. So, unfortunately, you're going to have to make sure in future that any commander will be able to pick up any unit without any trouble.
Which is why I'm looking so carefully at those squires and their capabilities, because I myself, even though I'm heading this up, also have a very demanding job that prevents me from being in places, and it would look very strange with the cameras rolling if I were to show up in certain areas,
Mm,
especially if I'm always showing up in the middle of a crisis.
that is very much true. So, bearing that in mind, we'll also have to make sure that we understand and accommodate for the individuals who also have demanding careers.
which is why I'm hoping that we can help some individuals become fiscally independent through generous donations and the stock market.
Hmm. That might take some work. However, not impossible to do. Just a matter of nudging things the right way. Regardless, make sure that because even sometimes the most demanding of careers could actually provide as useful resources. So before we strike any of them as terms of independence, make sure we know what their careers are and how they can benefit us.
I will take that under advisement. It's wise words. After all, my own job, while demanding, does mean I can pull focus from a crisis that's brewing. And your ability to work the scene, perhaps a certain investigative scene afterwards, is a good example.
Exactly. So keep in mind, we will have to make sure that we understand, and we wish to make sure we maintain the idea that we are understanding and we are not forcing these individuals to make decisions they don't want to do. After all, they left Brooklyn and and we are trying to put forward a better image of commoner nobility relations, are we not?
So true. So very true.
Those that are willing to make an offer, make sure it's to make a change, make sure it's something that they are happy with and what they want to do, not something that they are forced into.
Making dreams reality is the only reason I accepted this position in the first place.
There we go. As such, we shall look over the squires. If it turns out that none of the squires are ready for a position, at least as far as the as knighthood, as I said, I will accept a second squire if it is so desired, but I caution against that, as that means I'm dividing focus. I much rather make sure that Anya is a shining example.
Which is something I had not considered, which is we will be looking at each of the knights carefully. Hopefully, at least one of you will be able to take on a second squire, if they don't have one already.
There is another suggestion, as this is not uncommon practice, though maybe a little unorthodox. Sebastian himself had a squire when he first came here.
Yes.
Have you ever considered taking the responsibility yourself?
Considering my position, you know better than I about the political dealings of our kind. You say it's unorthodox. I'm not a member of a house.
Well, that is something that you and the Lord Sebastian can discuss. As far as I know, I think he's squireless at the moment. I'm not sure where that Slua slunk off to be completely honest. And he sort of gives a very, very, very wicked smile.
I had heard that she had vanished to Brooklyn, but that was just a rumor.
Yes, I think the shattering of Sir Carol was a rather devastating blow.
So many things were devastating.
Still, if the young lord is in need of a squire, and if you yourself find that might be a bit of a conflict of interest, perhaps he should select from the from the new ones. After all, it's a matter of focus. Every knight should make sure every knight has their responsibility with their squire. Putting two risks the fires of favoritism, and it risks the fact that one will get more attention than the other. Like I said, favoritism, but it also risks that if they are trying to do equally, the ending result might end up being less. So,
Again, a good point.
as for everything else, as of right now, this seems fairly concrete. Do you mind in my letter to my message to Lijon, I should say, that I at least touch a little bit of the subjects that'll be covered?
Yes, by all means. An agenda should be there so that we don't end up wasting each other's time.
Very well. I will make sure he's informed and that he is aware of the topics that you wish to discuss. Is there anything else, my lady?
Nothing at this time. If anything comes up on your end, Sir Karas, my door is always open.
Of course. Thank you very much for your time, my lady. I will begin. Well, not so much as begun, but I shall continue with my work in trying to mend the fences between Manhattan and Brooklyn here before the meeting between Sam and the young lord, the Governor Sam and our Lord Sebastian decide to have their meeting.
Yes, and we will make sure that Baron Sebastian is well versed and briefed on everything ahead of time, she says, trying to maintain a smile.
Indeed. In bold print.
Exactly, she says, finally allowing herself a laugh.
Very well. Then, with your leave, my lady, I must be off.
She motions for him.
Stands up and he bows and he turns and he makes his way out. Though he starts, as he's making his way out, he's caught. He's almost caught in his own world. He almost bumps into one or two people along the way as he's caught with the flexing of his hand as he's looking at it, and he's looking at it. He's always done this. No. That Kararis has never done this, but this is a Charles habit. He remembers when he was young, whenever he was being punished or his mother was shouting at him, how he had to redirect, how he had to keep himself from being overtly agitated. He'd start flexing his right hand over and over and over again, and it was a habit that he recognized what it was. It was a coping mechanism for stress. Amazing when you become your own psychologist, what you look at, what you see. Now he's doing it. He's agitated. Oh, he knows why he was agitated too. Making me a military commander. Sort of grits his teeth at that one as he finally closes his hand and he keeps it closed. I don't wish to turn them into beasts. You want them to be militant? Sure, fine. Encourage them in the ways of violence and how they tear everything down. But I guarantee you, when they're under my command, there's going to be something far more elegant about each and every one of them once I'm through. He sighs and he breathes. All right. Maurice, Sam, Paul, Misha, and William. These are all who I have to meet. And with that, he makes his way out. Anything we wish to add on Alice's end?
Nope, because, well, At Alice's end, I will say she gets up after Charles leaves. She lets out a breath, finally allowing her body to relax. So it begins. Taran is going to be now taking the reins, and Alice is going to have to take a back seat.
And with that, I think we will end our scene. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever and whenever you are. Bye-bye.